Welcome to the Wellness for Women show, where we talk about life, weight loss and everything in between. I'm Faye Casement, founder of the AAA Way Life and Weight Loss Programme, and I'm here to help you put together the pieces of life and weight loss for one last time. This is an episode of the Wellness for Women show, filmed live in the free Facebook group. What am I covering tonight though? I am covering the emotional connection to food and how it can affect your weight loss. So, pretty sure that most people would say yes to this, but play along with me here. Do you ever find yourself turning to food at the end of a busy day, or mindlessly eating when you are bored, or turning to your favorite foods when you are feeling low? Let me know in the chat. Again, you're not alone. Many people eat when they're feeling stressed, sad, angry, but we also can eat from joy, happiness, and pretty much any emotion. The only one that perhaps we won't necessarily always eat from is disgust, if you're not really fancying a particular food type or something like that. But what I'm going to explore today in today's show is basically just a bit more about emotional eating and eating when we're not physically hungry or physically in need of food for energy. So you may or may not have seen the previous show, the one that was called The 5 E's of Eating. One of the 5 reasons that we eat, although I have since added a 6th one in there, is emotional hunger. So many people struggle with their relationship with food. Certainly, if you do occupy a larger body, chances are there has been some emotional eating along the way. And there are a lot of there's a lot of people posting again in the forums. I always talk about people posting in forums, how they just love food too much. Sugar is their kryptonite, how they just can't seem to keep away from X, Y, and Z food, how they just can't seem to control themselves around food. And so I want to explore the science a bit tonight with regards to food and emotion. And you might be surprised to learn just how closely they are linked. And by understanding the connection between food and emotion, and specifically how that turns up for you in your life and your weight loss, is when you can start to make more informed choices about your eating habits. And I'm just going to go onto my phone because the system that I am on doesn't necessarily show me comments, but then I will need to turn it down. Get in there. You'd think after 30 odd versions of these that I would be a little bit more organised, but no. Okay, so if you want the show notes from this, leave me a hashtag show notes and I will whiz you the details of that. Also a link for this so that you can just keep it in your messenger box. And whilst I'm on that, actually, if you are watching this and you've joined the group, I will have sent you a messenger at some point. Again, I can end up in your spam boxes, so make sure that you are checking your message requests, checking if you've asked for the free course. There's been about 50 people sign up for the free course so far. Make sure that you have checked your spam box and that kind of thing, because obviously if it's not getting through and nobody's telling me, then I don't know. But again, stay tuned in this one though, because there are more tips are coming for you. So again, quick intro. Always like to give you an intro to me, just in case it's the first time you're watching, because we have new members coming to the group all the time. I am Faye Casement. I'm the creator of the AAA Way Life and Weight Loss Programme. My goal in life now is to help other women to find the balance between life and weight loss for sustainable weight loss like I did. And I do that by teaching my AAA women simple methods that they can use to just craft their own unique and more joyful, the key thing here is joyful weight loss program. And there's a range of ways in which you and I can work together. So just let me know if that's something you want more information on. So, emotional eating. So I don't know, again, if you've seen any of the posts, but I've had Whitney going round in my head all week. Every time I say emotional, I get so emotional, baby. Can't stop it. Just can't stop the earworms. Anyway, so emotional eating. Technically speaking, every meal you eat is born out of some kind of emotion or not. And when you understand that a situation occurs that leads to your thoughts, that leads to your emotion, that leads to an action or inaction, and then the results, things start to get a little bit clearer. So when you eat for energy, the thought model, so that situation, thought, emotion, action, result, would look a bit like situation, genuine hunger cues, so body's feeling physically in need of food. You have the thought, I'm hungry. The emotion, desire. Action, you go eat to feel physically satisfied. The result, your body is satiated and you go about your day. So that's in theory what should happen. When we eat for emotion, the thought model might look a bit more like this. So this is just a simple version for an evaluation. Situation, had a disagreement with partner because the situation is always neutral. Thought, they shouldn't have spoken to me like that. Emotion, anger, frustration, pick whatever, emotion it might be. Action, raid fridge, binge on comfort food, eat when not hungry. And the result, the body has more food than it needs. Cue further thought models, whether that's be about still being angry, with your partner, or angry at yourself and not, for eating when you weren't hungry. Your body probably feels full. You might feel uncomfortably sick. So there's two completely different models that are going on there, right? One is going to serve you and your body and weight loss, and one is not going to serve you quite so much. So what is the difference between physical hunger and emotional eating? So let's start with physical hunger. So genuine physical hunger is at the end of the day, it's a physiological response to being physically hungry. It's like a science lesson, this, isn't it? And it ultimately occurs when the body's energy reserves have got low enough and that we need food to replenish it. Sounds simple. Pretty sure you probably all knew that. But, what's really going on is that your brain is monitoring. It's constantly monitoring to see whether the status quo is happening in your body. And so we've then got, obviously, the area of our brain, the hypothalamus, which looks to control hunger and fullness cues, as well as regulating body temperature, sleep, and hormones. So again, that hypothalamus is kind of really has a lot to play in everything that's going on for us, right? And so it's constantly monitoring those energy levels. And when it dips too low, it's going to tell us that we need to go and eat. And when we're really listening to our bodies and we're perhaps not distracted and we've got control of our emotions, it will also tell us when to stop. The problem is it can also send up false signals due to our emotions. And so emotional eating is when we are eating for an emotional reason as opposed to having a physical need for food or energy. And so it's ultimately when our brains have had a physical or mental psychological response to a situation or event that has happened in our lives. Hence why my whole thing is about how life and weight loss need to fit together like a jigsaw. And so certain emotions, they can lead to us seeking out food, even when we're not physically hungry. Again, we know this. So you can search out food because of happiness, for love, for pride, for sadness, for anger, for stress, anxiety. Wow, I've got a whole wheel of emotionals and feelings, I just only managed to reel off 9 or so there. And emotional eating obviously leads to us overeating because we're not genuinely hungry. And people will often crave their favourite foods when that's the case. And often, again, because our brain is in panic mode, it's trying to get us to eat foods that have high energy levels, so high calories. So again, not like count calories, but again, you can't get away from the science that there is obviously certain foods with certain calories and not. Just going to have a drink of water, sorry. And because it's going to send you where it thinks the good stuff is, isn't it? Never really heard of anybody stress eating on carrots unless you're a rabbit. But the reason for that, though, is science, which I'll cover later. So what are the effects of emotional eating on weight gain? So emotional eating can lead to weight gain. No shit, Sherlock, right? Why? Because we're eating when we're not physically hungry, when the body doesn't need food. So effectively, we're overindulging and making choices that might not be serving our health, our well-being, or our weight management. But it goes deeper than that. Your emotions play a powerful role in your eating habits. And emotional eating isn't just about weight gain. It can also lead to additional emotions, your guilt, your shame, And again, that then just triggers further emotional eating and a vicious cycle. And so it then can mean that other areas of our life are affected too, such as work and relationships and social activities. And so again, that's why life and weight loss have to be worked on together if you want long-term weight loss. Because success is all about how you show up in all areas of life and how it knocks into each other. So emotional eating is definitely 100%, hands down, the one thing that you really, really want to be aware of and work on if it's something that applies to you. And as I said at the start, really, it applies to all of us. And certainly if overeating is something that we have done for a while or historically. So are you in an emotional eating trap? And how do you break free? And so let's have a look at the science a bit more. So why do we emotionally eat? The science behind the feels. And as always, we're going to use the AAA way method. So the first protocol is awareness. So just knowing why and how you emotionally eat, which we've just covered, is powerful in itself. And that's before we even get into action and accountability. So you've already got a bit more awareness possibly already. You know what emotional eating is. You know that it can impact your weight loss. And so let's continue to explore the science behind that food and emotion and look at why and learn about why we feel the way that we do when about eating certain foods. So you then got emotional eating and the stress response. So when you're stressed, your habit brain takes over. It can perceive emotion as threat. It can actually try and compute it into a physical threat. And then that triggers your flight or fight response, which can lead to cravings or overeating. And so your habit brain, so your part of your brain at the back, is always trying to keep you safe. It's always trying to keep you in status quo. And so if you think about it, back in the day when we were all cave people and we didn't have our busy modern lives, it was all about survival. So it makes complete sense to me that our prehistoric wiring, which is what our brain is still based on, is confused. Because that back brain is still, in prehistoric terms, still very similar to what it used to be. And so if you were facing a saber-toothed tiger daily, your body needs to be ready, right? It needs to be fueled, as it's going to go off and fight the tiger. And so your brain is going to try and get you to go and increase your energy consumption. And in modern day terms, that's likely to be all the things that traditional dieting will have told you that you, again, shouldn't eat. And it will be your brain tells you to go get that food, like now, go grab it now. The tiger's coming, go grab it quick. And that's how we end up diving into food. Or maybe your emotion is triggering your flight response. So your brain is looking for a way to make you feel better, to keep the status quo. And so again, it often will think that it's easier to distract ourselves, to bury our emotions than to deal with them head on. But really, we're just masking, we're just burying them underneath. And when we're feeling overwhelmed or stressed, eating can be a way to distract ourselves from our problems. A way to numb out, a way to buffer, and a way to not have to deal with things, right? So we will have acquired over time our own unique combination of comfort food and ways to solve or ways our brain likes to try and solve our problems. Our brain knows what it thinks it knows with regards to what it's going to help us to feel good. And like I say, often those foods are going to be higher in perhaps sugar and higher in fat than perhaps you would traditionally think that you maybe can eat if you are on a weight loss program. And so obviously my weight loss program is slightly different. We don't obviously calorie count or cut fat or cut sugar or whatever, unless that's what you really want to do or medically need to do it. But the other reason for that is that it's because those type of foods will give you a rush of pleasure due to the hormones that get released when you are happy. And it's the feel-good chemicals of dopamine and serotonin and oxytocin, and those little gems that make us happy, relaxed and calm. And so again, your brain knows that, and so it sends you for them. But the problem is those feelings don't typically last. They last, a feeling typically, if you just leave it be, will last for about 90 seconds. So then what happens? Well, the problem's still there. Your life problem, whatever created the emotion in the first place, chances are it's still there. So you either then have to go and find another food hit or something else to make you feel better, or maybe then the guilt sets in because you feel that you've done something that you shouldn't have done. So does that sound familiar? Does that sound familiar to you? It's a bit of a vicious cycle, right? That can ultimately lead to weight gain. It can lead to, again, loss of joy through shame and guilt. And for lasting weight loss, we need to uncover those emotional connections that we've got going on in life, food, and weight loss. Now, I know it can sound a little bit scary, like you're going to open Pandora's box and, what if you can't get it back in? But it's really not. The problem with keeping any kind of box locked tight is that it's still going to be there internally, kind of eating away at you, really. So let's say that you lost weight and you basically knuckled your way down, all the way down on, keto, Weight Watchers, shakes, whatever like that. Are you really truly free if you're not dealing with what's underneath? What's the reason for you eating and overeating ultimately in the first place? So when I'm working on these things to try and work those emotions through, I really just come back to the fact that now that I know the science behind it, I can release the judgment, and it's judgment that creates suffering. And so I'll just say to myself, well, yeah, of course I'm feeling like that. It's just science or something like that. And it just takes it away. Whereas, without knowing that, and before I knew that, it was like, I'm broken. I'm never going to be able to lose weight. I shouldn't be doing this. And it was just judgment central, basically. So brain remembers everything, as I've already said, but over time, ultimately, you've built loads of connections up with certain foods. And so again, these are the foods that you are going to crave whenever you experience an emotion that fits that. It's from your past. A lot of it is from childhood. And so your brain remembers everything. So it knows what made you feel happier last time you felt that way. So again, say you feel sad, your brain wants to make you happy. It remembers the last time you felt sad, that you had chocolate and it made you happier. So it goes, I know, chocolate, this will make her happy. And so it sends you the thought, we should eat chocolate. And then that leads to the feeling of desire, which can then actually then trigger physical responses and make you think that you're hungry, even though that you're not hungry, because our brain's flawed. It conveniently forgets that you felt shit afterwards when you felt the shame from the overeat. And so the real trick is to catch the thought or the emotion before the action of eating and ask yourself, what do I really need right now? Because chances are it's not food. Chances are it's something else, whether that be comfort or love or rest or just to chill out after a bad day. And you can also, as well, we can also obviously have emotional connections to certain food because of memories as well. And also, we can also have FOMO, not wanting to miss out on things. So again, these are all thoughts and feelings that can come up for us. So for me, for example, I had a lovely nana who sadly is no longer with us. And we would bake together and I would lick the bowl, and they were very, very happy times, and so baking makes me happy. And if I bake, I still want to lick the bowl because that's what I grew up doing. And if I'm working on my weight loss and I was trying to bake, then that's probably going to be a cue for me to overeat because, it's something that brings me a lot of joy. And so that's something that I became aware of through my weight loss journey as I started to question, what did I do and why did I do it and how did I do it and when did I do it? So again, so much more than just what I'm eating and how I'm moving my body. And so it helped me to uncover the fact that I had got this pattern, I'd got this trigger and the reasons that I had those. And so then that meant that I could then step into action and decide whether I was going to do something about it or not, because the next steps are always, after awareness, is taking action and holding yourself accountable. So how do we step into action and hold ourselves accountable? So ultimately, there is no one size fits all solution for managing emotional eating. What works for one person might not work for another. And this is why true sustainable weight loss, so much more than food in and food out and movement, because it's really got to fit you. And so if you're calorie counting points, drinking shakes, appetite suppressants, they're not really teaching you how to truly change your relationship with food. All they're doing is teaching you how to follow their methods, if you see what I mean. And in certain cases, if you go a bit too hell for leather at it, it could even be damaging your relationship with food and yourself a little bit further. So again, huge word of caution with regards to some methods that are out there. Possibly more used. I'm sure they weren't designed to create these problems. This is probably just down to the fact of how we use them and abuse them ourselves, but still something to be very aware of. So some general tips for you. Got 6 tips, I think it is. So first one is ditch the diet mentality. So feeling restricted, telling yourself you can't have things, that you shouldn't have things, that X, Y, and Z is not allowed, is not helping your relationship with food. All you're doing is fighting reality, creates needless suffering, and it's why most diets will fail and ultimately usually not suitable. Want you to be aware of your triggers. So the first step is always having awareness of your triggers, what situations or emotions are leading to you emotionally eating. Once you know your triggers, you can start to develop a plan for how you're going to deal with them. Going to be aware of your food stories, so identifying your relationship with certain foods. Where does it come from? How deep does it go? What purpose did it serve you? What does it currently serve you, and is it still going to serve you in the future? And then you can start to anticipate it for when it comes up, and again start to solve the problem in advance. So again, if I'm baking, I know that I am going to want to lick the bowl, so I have a choice: lick the bowl or come up with some kind of creative way, which means I don't lick the bowl. So I might actually, if I was going to bake, I probably will plan to lick the bowl, because I have lost my 70 pounds without any restriction. But then what I do is I obviously look to try and balance then that throughout the day, and I will then bake at a time when I'm hungry, or I'll make sure that I'm hungry so that I can lick the bowl, if that makes sense, because I'm still looking to do that when I am physically hungry. Or alternatively, I can decide that no, I'm going to level up. I'm not going to lick the bowl this time. So then maybe once the batter's done and the cake mix is in, quickly stick some fairy liquid in it and wash the bowl. That way I can't eat it, right? So, but either of those approaches is absolutely fine. It's whatever works for you. And that's, again, always the key. It's about what works for you. And you're going to identify your emotional needs. So are you really hungry, or are you looking for something else? So if you're not physically hungry, it's about trying to identify what you're really craving for, which is why I talk about really tapping into mind, body and soul. Are you looking for comfort? Are you just looking for a distraction? Or are you looking for something to make you feel better in some way, shape or form? 5th one, find other ways to meet your needs. So again, once you've identified that emotional need, it's about trying to find other ways that don't involve food. So if you're looking for comfort, maybe you could try talking to a friend or family member, reading a book, or taking a relaxing bath. If you're looking for a distraction, try going for a walk, watching a movie, working on a hobby. If you're looking for something to, just generally to make you feel better, not that better is really an emotion, that was probably a really bad example, but, self-care, mindfulness, these are all things that can soothe your emotional needs rather than food. You just need to try and pick something that is going to give you the same kind of level of vibration, ideally. And then the 6th one is to come work with me. If you've tried all of these tips and you're still struggling with emotional eating, maybe it's time to reach out for additional support. So like I say, I can teach you all the techniques that you need to figure this out, to provide you with the coaching support to help you through it. Whether you're a lone wolf and you want one-to-one, or you want to be part of a community through my membership, I can help you to support your goals. And ultimately, at the end of the day, yes, I would love you all to come and work with me. But even if you don't, just keep working on it yourself. Reach out for support wherever you can. I just really want to demonstrate that there is perhaps another way, or other things that can be looked at to help you with life and weight loss. Right, so conclusions. So the emotional connection to food can run deep, a bit like the ocean, So just when you think that you've fathomed it out, you find some new depths for it, and they can seem quite impossible to explore, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try. And you can always learn more about the emotional connection with your food and how it's affecting your weight loss. All you've really got to do is just be curious and just keep observing what's going on. But weight gain ultimately is a result of a number of factors, but emotional eating is likely to be one of them. So today you've learned a little bit about the science of emotional eating, how it shows up, why it shows up. Hopefully that has been interesting. I know I find it interesting. How do you feel now that you know the science behind it? Hopefully you don't feel like you are broken, because again, before I knew all of this, I would think that I was broken, that there was something wrong with me, and why couldn't I keep away from these foods? But it's not that you are failing or that you are out of control. It's just science. It's just the science. And hopefully you've got some tips to try and commit to today that will help you to start getting hold on your life and your weight loss in a way that suits you and your life. But if you need more, then you know where I am. So let's say, want to make sure that you've got the benefit out of this. Make sure that you leave me a hashtag show notes if you want show notes and link to the video. Give me a shout if there's any resources that you feel would benefit you at this time. Chances are I may already have something in the group, so I can always signpost you. Just drop me a DM and we'll have a chat. And other than that, I'm going to wish you a good evening. I love you and leave you, and I will see you all next week. Bye for now. Thanks for listening, and don't forget, if you want to boost your life and weight loss the AAA way, check out the relevant links for today's show in the description. Speak soon.